In the uneasy stillness that hung over Port Charles that Monday morning, the ripple of decisions, goodbyes, and reckoning began to accelerate in waves no one seemed ready for. At the center of it all stood Drew Kane, a man no longer certain whether he was seeking justice or simply clinging to the wreckage of a life that had already unraveled beyond repair. His anger smoldered beneath the surface, no longer the righteous fury of a man wronged but the desperate fire of someone who no longer recognized the line between vengeance and truth. Watching Michael, Willow, Wiley, and Amelia together, laughing under the soft warmth of a family moment, Drew felt himself drowning in resentment. It wasn't just the family he had once dreamed of that now belonged to another man, it was the realization that Michael had reclaimed it all without losing the public's favor. And now, Drew couldn't just sit back and let a custody ruling wipe him from the lives of the children he'd grown to love. As he met with Rick Lansing behind courthouse doors, it was no longer about legality. It was about control, leverage, and silencing the hope that had begun to bloom in Michael's home. But Drew wasn't the only one preparing for emotional war. Elsewhere in Port Charles, Willow Corinthos was facing her own reckoning. Nina Reeves, once a woman Willow had tried to keep at arm's length, now stood as the keeper of a new, unwelcome truth. Willow confronted her with a quiet but unshakable composure, asking why Nina had kept silent for so long. The question lingered like ash in the air, and Nina faltered. Whether the secret involved Sasha's child or another long-held deception, it was clear that Willow was unraveling the threads of something deeper, something that would make her question not only the bonds she thought she had formed, but also her own instincts. For Nina, it was no longer just about saving face, it was about preserving the fragile connection with a daughter she had only recently begun to reach. But secrets, once released, have their own momentum, and Willow's confrontation was only the beginning of what Nina would have to answer for. Meanwhile, Kristina Corinthos Davis was making bold moves of her own. A moment of inspiration struck her like lightning, offering what felt like clarity in the midst of family chaos. But inspiration, especially when it emerges from emotional turmoil, can be dangerous when not tempered with patience. Against her mother Alexis's advice, Kristina took steps toward helping resolve a delicate blackmail threat that had been quietly shadowing the Davis family. What she believed to be a gesture of love could easily spiral into legal disaster. The strength Kristina thought she was wielding could soon be revealed as recklessness if the secret she was trying to suppress found the light. The Spencer family, too, was facing a poignant fork in the road. Lucky Spencer had always been restless, a wanderer never meant to be tethered to any one place too long. Though he had proposed to Elizabeth Baldwin, her heart knew the truth. He would always be chasing something beyond Port Charles, even if he couldn't name it. She turned him down with gentle conviction, understanding that love without stability was a storm she couldn't weather again. Lucas Jones became her quiet confidant as she shared her decision, and though he offered support, there was little comfort in the moment. Later, Lucky stood face to face with Lulu Spencer, prepared to say goodbye once more. The love between them remained, but so did the ache of departure. Lulu, always the brave one, let him go with grace. Her eyes betrayed sorrow, but she knew the cost of trying to cage someone who needed to roam. They had long since stopped trying to fix what life had broken, but neither could deny the sting of saying farewell. At the Metro Court pool, a lighter, more playful scene unfolded. Ava Jerome found herself dealing cards at a table with Marco Rios, the latest romantic interest in Lucas Jones' complicated life. For Ava, it was a rare moment of simplicity, laughter, flirtation, a game with no real stakes. But in Port Charles, nothing stayed lighthearted for long, and even this new acquaintance carried the possibility of future entanglements. Elsewhere, Brooke Lynn Quartermain made a renewed promise to Harrison Chase. She was trying, really trying, to rebuild her life on a foundation of honesty. The reckless ambition and half-truths that had once defined her now stood behind her like a shadow she could no longer ignore. Her biggest hope rested in repairing her relationship with Giovanni Gio Palmieri. The young man still kept his distance, protective of the wound he hadn't yet voiced. Brooke Lynn tried to offer him something real, a version of herself she hadn't let others see before. But Gio wasn't ready to trust that the change was permanent. "You have everything you need," he told her, refusing the emotional olive branch. Still, the door wasn't entirely closed. Sometimes, growth came in silence, and Gio's heart might still turn, even if the words weren't there yet. As all these threads pulled tighter, the one place where all stories converged was the courtroom. Michael Corinthos scheduled a private meeting, hoping to resolve the custody issues with Willow quietly. He had seen the impact of public spectacle too many times and didn't want their children to suffer for adult failures. But Drew had already sown the seeds of sabotage. Rick Lansing's legal maneuvers, backed by Drew's newfound ruthlessness, meant that no agreement could be trusted at face value. The battle wasn't just over custody, it was over identity, legacy, and redemption. Back in the shadows, unseen tremors were shifting. Nina, still holding truths she hadn't fully confessed, sensed that her time was running out. Drew, lost in his mission, was crossing lines he once swore never to approach. Kristina, chasing justice, might soon find herself dragged into something far darker. And as Lucky disappeared again into the world beyond, Port Charles braced for what came next. Because in this town, goodbyes are rarely final, secrets refuse to stay buried, and love, whether broken or reborn, has a way of returning just when it's least expected.